It was supposed to be the day my son got a second chance at life, the day I gave him a piece of myself, literally. My kidney, a perfect match, was seconds away from being transplanted into him. I was already prepped, lying on the gurney, feeling the cold, clinical air of the operating room, when my 9-year-old grandson, Ethan, burst in, his face tear-streaked and pale, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. He screamed, "Grandpa, don't do it. Don't give him your kidney. He killed my fish." The surgical team froze. I froze. My son, lying in the adjacent room, was oblivious to the bombshell that had just detonated. Was I wrong to even hesitate? Tell me, would you have gone through with it, knowing what I know now? Let me take you back to how we even got to that point, to understand the weight of Ethan's words. My son, Mark, has always been complicated. He was my only child. And from a young age, he exhibited a certain selfishness, a disregard for others that I always hoped he would grow out of. His mother, my late wife Sarah, always saw the best in him, even when I struggled. She was the anchor, the one who balanced us, but after she passed 5 years ago, it felt like Mark's more negative traits intensified. He spiraled into a lifestyle of reckless spending, job hopping, and generally making poor choices. He'd burn through money, borrow from us, and then disappear for months, only to resurface when he needed something else. It was exhausting, emotionally and financially. He had a son, Ethan, with his ex-wife, Lisa, who was a wonderful woman, a stark contrast to Mark's chaotic nature. Lisa and Mark divorced when Ethan was 5, largely due to Mark's irresponsibility. Lisa tried her best to co-parent, but Mark was often absent, leaving her to shoulder most of the burden. I, of course, stepped in wherever I could, wanting to provide Ethan with some stability and a loving grandfather figure. Ethan became the light of my life after Sarah passed. He's a sensitive, intelligent boy, deeply attached to his pets, especially his better fish, Sparky, which he won at a school fair. Sparky lived in a meticulously clean tank in Ethan's room at my house, whenever he stayed over. Ethan would spend hours just watching Sparky, talking to him, carefully feeding him. It was a simple joy for him, a constant in his often turbulent young life. The news of Mark's kidney failure came like a punch to the gut. He'd been feeling unwell for months, but he'd dismissed it as flu or stress. When he finally went to the doctor, they told him his kidneys were failing rapidly, a result of years of neglect, poor diet, and excessive alcohol consumption. He needed a transplant, and he needed it fast. The doctors explained the grim statistics, the long waiting lists, the slim chances of finding a compatible donor. My heart broke for him, despite everything. He was still my son. I immediately offered to get tested. I'd always been healthy, and deep down, I harbored a glimmer of hope that this crisis would be a wake-up call for him, a chance for him to turn his life around. To my surprise and immense relief, I was a perfect match. The relief was short-lived, however, as the complications of Mark's lifestyle meant he needed to undergo a rigorous preparation period, including months of sobriety and dietary changes, to even be considered for the transplant. He struggled, he complained, he almost gave up multiple times, but the fear of death, I think, was a powerful motivator. I was there every step of the way, encouraging him, driving him to appointments, making sure he stuck to his regimen. Lisa also pitched in, for Ethan's sake, hoping his father would get better. Ethan, sensing the gravity of the situation, would draw pictures for his dad, depicting him healthy and strong. He even made a little get-well-soon card for Mark, promising to teach him how to properly care for a fish when he was better. During this period, Mark was staying with me more often, as it was closer to the hospital and easier for me to monitor his diet. Ethan would visit on weekends, and he loved having his dad there, even if Mark was often grumpy and irritable from the medication and the strict routine. I remember one particular weekend, about a month before the scheduled surgery. Ethan was excitedly showing Mark Sparky, explaining all about better fish care. Mark, distracted by his phone, barely acknowledged him. Later that day, I overheard Mark complaining about Sparky's tank taking up too much space, saying it was smelly and annoying to have around. I brushed it off as him being stressed, but a small knot of unease formed in my stomach. The transplant date was set, a culmination of months of preparation, hope, and anxiety. The hospital room was ready, the surgical team briefed. I said my goodbyes to Ethan, who was staying with Lisa for the day, and then I was wheeled into the operating room. That's when Ethan burst in, his voice cracking, the crumpled drawing in his hand. He looked at me with such raw pain and accusation in his eyes. He drowned Sparky, Grandpa. He killed him. This is a drawing of Sparky that I was going to give him, but now I won't. He said Sparky was annoying him. My mind reeled. Sparky, Ethan's beloved fish, dead? And Mark was responsible? The cold anger that surged through me was a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the operating room. I looked at the surgical masks, the glowing monitors, and then back at Ethan's devastated face. My son, who needed my kidney to live, had deliberately killed his own son's pet, a small, innocent creature that brought Ethan so much joy. The selfishness, the cruelty of it, hit me like a physical blow. The image of Mark, healthy and thriving because of my sacrifice, while Ethan mourned his pet, was sickening. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, not just for Ethan, but for myself, for all the sacrifices I had made, all the excuses I had given Mark over the years. This wasn't just about a fish, it was about the callous disregard Mark had for anything that didn't directly benefit him. It was about a pattern of behavior that had caused so much pain to those around him, especially his own son. The nurses were trying to gently escort Ethan out, but he clung to me, repeating, "Please, Grandpa, don't give him your kidney. He doesn't deserve it." The words echoed in the sterile room. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone through with the surgery? The head surgeon, a kind woman named Dr. Evans, put a hand on my arm. "Mr. Peterson, is everything all right?" she asked, her voice calm but concerned. I looked at Ethan again, his face a mess of snot and tears, his small body trembling. The crumpled drawing in his hand was a simple, childlike depiction of a bright orange fish in a blue tank. My mind raced. I thought of Sarah, and how she would have handled this. She would have been heartbroken for Ethan, but she would have also pleaded for Mark's life. But then I thought of all the times Mark had disappointed us, the times he had hurt Sarah, the times he had let Ethan down. This wasn't just a childish prank, it was a cold, calculated act of malice towards his own son. He hadn't just killed a fish, he had stomped on Ethan's trust, on his innocence. I took a deep breath. "No, Dr. Evans," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Everything is not all right. I need to speak to my son. Now." The room went silent. The nurses looked at each other, confused. Dr. Evans, however, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. She nodded to her team, and they began to unhook me from the monitors. I asked for Ethan to stay, to be present for what was about to happen. My resolve hardened with every second. Times Mark had disappointed us, the times he had hurt Sarah, the times he had let Ethan down. This wasn't just a childish prank, it was a cold, calculated act of malice towards his own son. He hadn't just killed a fish, he had stomped on Ethan's trust, on his innocence. I took a deep breath. "No, Dr. Evans," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Everything is not all right. I need to speak to my son. Now." The room went silent. The nurses looked at each other, confused. Dr. Evans, however, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. She nodded to her team, and they began to unhook me from the monitors. I asked for Ethan to stay, to be present for what was about to happen. My resolve hardened with every second.